Imagine that every moment of your life is a moment when, from many possible options, you choose just one, entering one reality out of many. And this is not just fantasy or esotericism, but real physics, confirmed by world-class theorists. According to quantum mechanics, before we make a choice or take an action, our inner world is in a state of superposition, that is, simultaneously in several states. And when the collapse of the wave function occurs, the system instantly transitions into one specific state. Let me explain that the wave function collapse is the moment when a quantum system, which until then existed in many possible states at once, the so-called superposition state, suddenly transitions to one particular state upon observation or measurement. This is a key moment that describes how probabilities turn into reality. This process has been studied by scientists such as John von Neumann, Roger Penrose, and others, with quantum principles forming the foundation of modern physics and technology. So, in every conscious step you take, is reflected the amazing essence of the very nature of reality. This is not just philosophy, it is science. And in this mysterious space called the quantum matrix, not only particles and energy intertwine, but possibly the very threads of our consciousness themselves. Modern science, exploring the boundaries of quantum mechanics and neuroscience, is delving ever deeper into the mysteries of how quantum phenomena penetrate biological systems, creating an intriguing connection with our life experience and inner world. It may seem surprising that 21st century scientists view the brain not just as a collection of neurons controlling electromagnetic impulses, but as a quantum computer capable of using superconductivity, entanglement, and coherence to process information. This is not a mystical voice, but conclusions of prominent researchers such as Roger Penrose, the Wolf Prize laureate in physics, and Stuart Hameroff, an anesthesiologist with profound knowledge of neuron biology. Their theory of orchestrated objective reduction suggests that microtubules, the tiniest structures of the cytoskeleton of brain cells, are capable of maintaining quantum states and participating in the formation of consciousness. This hypothesis correlates with modern observations of the coherence of quantum biophotons and even the Semitic fractal organization of microtubules, like a secret code of nature embedding consciousness into the quantum continuum. One of the most intriguing discoveries in the field of quantum biology is the connection between neuronal microtubules and the emission of biophotons, tiny particles of light produced by living cells. The research of Stuart Hameroff, as well as other leading scientists, demonstrates that microtubules can maintain quantum coherence, a state in which quantum particles exchange information without losing connection, even amid the thermal noise of living tissue. Experiments using ultra-sensitive photon detectors have shown that neurons in the brain emit tiny light pulses in the visible range, which form biophotons. This biophoton activity is linked to the excitation of tryptophan molecules in the microtubules, where quantum effects manifest for several nanoseconds, a duration thousands of times longer than the expected quantum coherence times in biological systems. That is, biophotons and the quantum coherence of microtubules can be imagined as a sort of flickering of this quantum field through which consciousness integrates into the infinite continuum of possibilities. So Penrose and Hameroff proposed that consciousness is a quantum wave passing through these microtubules. This wave, like any quantum wave, possesses properties such as superposition, the ability to exist in many places at once, and entanglement, the ability of two particles to be connected over great distances. To illustrate the principles of quantum consciousness, Hameroff recently suggested that it should be scale invariant, similar to fractals. What does this mean? Let's say it simply. In everyday life, we encounter simple manifestations of consciousness, such as self-awareness. However, in moments of heightened consciousness, quantum perception is activated, allowing a sense of presence in multiple points in space simultaneously. Thus, our consciousness can interact with quantum particles far beyond our brain, possibly even in the most remote corners of the universe. Many scientists quickly dismissed this theory as too simple. The fact is that until recently, it was believed that quantum particles maintain their wave properties and do not become individual measurable particles only under very cold conditions. And if it gets warm, the wave properties of particles vanish. And considering that the brain is a warm, moist, and soft structure, it seemed impossible for quantum wave properties of particles to be preserved in it. However, recent research in quantum biology has shown that living organisms can use quantum properties even under conditions far from ideal. These studies confirmed that microtubules inside neurons can maintain quantum coherence for nanoseconds, significantly longer than previously thought, despite the warm and noisy biological environment of the brain. A scientific team at the University of California, led by Edward Trifonoff, conducted experiments with 20 volunteers using combined electroencephalography and biophoton sensors, which allowed recording changes in biophoton emission depending on the state of consciousness and information processing by the brain. An astonishing result was the lack of synchronization between electrical activity and the localization of the emission, indicating the unique quantum nature of these processes, distinct from classical neuronal activity. It is important to clarify here that when we think about brain function, we usually imagine all signals as electrical impulses passing from one neuron to another. But Edward Trifonoff's research showed that in addition to this electrical activity, there is a completely different phenomenon, a weak emission of light particles called biophotons. Scientists noticed that the intensity of this biophoton glow is related to brain activity, but surprisingly, this glow does not always coincide in time and place with the electrical signals recorded by electroencephalography. This lack of synchronization indicates that biophotons relate to a special quantum level of processes in the brain, which differs from the classical neuronal exchange of electrical signals. Research of quantum phenomena in living systems, such as superposition and quantum entanglement, shows that they play a key role in biological processes occurring at the micro level. Modern studies of biophotons, tiny light particles emitted by living cells, including neurons and retinal cells of the eye, open a new perspective on processes occurring in our body at the quantum level. Special attention is paid to the biophoton activity of the retina and brain, where photon movement is associated with the functioning of photoreceptors and neurons. Complex light processing occurs in the retina, and biophotons can participate in regulating and synchronizing signals between cells. Modern quantum photonic sensing methods allow highly sensitive detection of quantum states of light in biological structures, helping to identify subtle changes in tissues and optimize disease diagnostics. Research conducted at the University of Surrey includes integrating quantum technologies to study biological molecules and cells, enhancing understanding of how photon quantum properties influence biological functions and processes, including those in the brain and visual organs. Also, the Quantum Biophotonics Laboratory at the University of Geneva uses advanced technologies, such as entangled photons and ultra-sensitive single-photon detectors, to understand how these weak emissions are related to biomolecules' work and interactions within living systems. Biophotons turn out not just to be random glows, but have coherent properties. That is, their oscillations and phases are synchronized, allowing the transmission of information at the quantum level. For example, researchers discovered that during seed germination, cells intensify biophoton emission, indicating quantum coherence, a stable and orderly state of light in biological tissues. This discovery provides grounds to believe that quantum processes may underlie life activity, ensuring deep connection and coordination of cell work. Such research not only uncovers fundamental knowledge about life at the quantum level, but also perspectives for applying photonic and quantum technologies for diagnosing, treating, and understanding the functions of the human brain and visual system. This illustrates how subtle quantum light, like an invisible language, connects and regulates life activity at the earliest and deepest levels of our body, expanding the horizons of science and our self-awareness. Recognized professor and researcher at the University of Alberta in Canada, Jack Tuzinski stresses in his works the fractal organization of microtubules, where the dense lattice structure and polarity of protein molecules create conditions for quantum superposition and holographic information storage. Imagine that you see one pattern, and if you look closer, in every part it repeats again and again, only at a smaller scale, like fern leaves or tree branches. This self-similarity is called fractal structure. In the case of microtubules, their protein molecules and internal lattice structure repeat similarly, creating a complex network through which signals and information can be transmitted. In this sense, microtubules act not merely as biological frameworks of the cell, but as quantum processes integrated into the brain structure, recording and transmitting information in space and time. Modern experimental works of Jack Tuzinski's team show that quantum reactions in microtubules can last up to 5 nanoseconds, which greatly exceeds previous estimates of coherence preservation in the organism and is sufficient for performing biological functions. These results, published in the journal ACS Central Science, confirm that microtubules are capable of sustaining quantum processes significantly longer than previously thought, strengthening ideas about the quantum nature of consciousness. Recent experiments with quantum fractals, conducted with computational and photonic models, allow observing photon behavior in fractal structures resembling microtubules, revealing unusual patterns of quantum propagation that do not obey classical rules. Such discoveries open doors for testing quantum consciousness theories on an experimental level and demonstrate how fundamental physics, mathematics, and biology can unify to expand our understanding of consciousness and the world. Thus, studies confirmed that microtubules possess fractal organization, creating unique conditions for quantum effects to manifest. Such concepts align with the philosophical and physical views of the outstanding thinker David Bohm, who developed the concept of hidden or implicate order. For Bohm, this order is a profound layer of reality in which matter and consciousness are inseparably linked, mutually permeate, and manifest through processes of folding and unfolding information in space and time. It is important to note that David Bohm was an American-British theoretical physicist known for his groundbreaking ideas in quantum theory, neuropsychology, and philosophy of consciousness. Bohm had a distinguished career teaching at Princeton University, the University of Bristol, and was a member of the Royal Society of Great Britain, recognized for his significant contributions to 20th century physics. In his book, Wholeness and the Implicate Order, he described this order as a universal hidden background on which all visible material and mental reality is built, where each moment contains the entire structure of the universe. Thus, the fractal organization of microtubules and Bohm's implicate order create a complementary picture, serving as a reliable scientific foundation for the hypothesis of quantum consciousness. It is like a secret code of nature, revealing the depths of interaction between matter and psyche at a fundamental level, and giving a new perspective on understanding human consciousness as a phenomenon integrated into the quantum matrix of life. To understand the scale of the amazing connection between quantum processes and our consciousness, it is helpful to recall a classic experiment in physics. Thomas Young's double-slit experiment showed that particles of light, photons, simultaneously exhibit properties of both waves and particles. This paradoxical phenomenon challenged rational thinking and created ground for philosophical reflections on the nature of reality. But how is this related to the brain and our life? As we have already understood, modern physicists argue that such quantum effects can occur inside neurons, meaning that our perception of the world is the result not only of chemical reactions and electrical signals, but also of the quantum matrix lying at the foundation of all material. For example, research by scientists from the University of Michigan showed that the myelin sheath, a special wrapping around nerve fibers, can create special conditions for the appearance of quantum-entangled photon pairs. These pairs of photons are connected in such a way that the state of one instantly affects the state of the other, even if they are far apart. Thanks to this, the brain can synchronize the work of different neurons, ensuring a holistic perception of the world, even though physically neurons are located in different places. You may ask, does this mean that our consciousness can be controlled remotely? Here, we will not rush to conclusions. The idea of quantum entanglement in the brain indeed implies that neurons can be in a special state of connection, allowing them to instantly coordinate their activity despite physical distance between them. However, this does not mean that our perception of the world can be directly or consciously controlled or changed remotely without the involvement of the brain itself or external stimuli. Quantum entanglement acts inside the brain, not outside. It does not allow anyone to control your thoughts or feelings from the other side of the world without direct interaction or through biological or technological means. In any case, to date, scientific practice does not confirm the possibility of remote external influence on our thoughts through quantum effects. Imagine that neurons are musicians scattered over a large stage, yet they still play perfectly in harmony because the wrapping around them creates invisible quantum strings that maintain their connection and coordination. This quantum phenomenon explains how the brain achieves an amazing unity of perception despite its parts working separately. In some way, it is like a huge symphony where each instrument, that is, each neuron, plays its part, and the quantum matrix acts as the conductor, directing this chaotic sound into a single whole. From this harmony, our consciousness, our self, and sense of reality are born. If you are interested in the subtle intertwining of philosophy, biology, and physics, leave a comment about what impressed you the most. And if you are not yet subscribed, now is a good time to subscribe to join the discussion and not miss new discoveries. Such discoveries open new doors to understanding how our consciousness works at a deep level, not only through electrical signals, but also through complex quantum interactions that until recently seemed impossible in biological systems. However, when looking deeper, a question arises. How conscious is this process? If quantum phenomena have a non-local, probabilistic nature, can free will be more than an illusion of quantum uncertainty? These are questions for future research. It is also important that the quantum matrix is not just a sphere of abstract theories, but a field with specific practical research and results. Detecting quantum phenomena in biological brain cells seems like opening a door to a new era of understanding the true nature of thinking and memory, offering us to restructure established scientific paradigms. One can imagine consciousness as a complex quantum computer capable of parallel processing of many states, as if on a subtle level resorting to several versions of reality simultaneously, choosing a particular perception through the act of awareness. To better feel this process, I suggest a simple exercise. Next time, try to slow your thoughts, imagining that each conscious action is the collapse of the quantum wave of your inner world. How will your perception of life change if you think about this regularly? As we already said, the wave function collapse is the moment when a quantum system, which until then existed simultaneously in many possible states, suddenly transitions to one specific state upon observation or measurement. Imagine that in front of you is an unfixed picture that can simultaneously look different, but as soon as you look or measure, it collapses into one specific variant. In quantum mechanics, this describes a sharp and instantaneous change of probabilities. The system chooses one result out of all possible. This is the key moment that explains why we observe specific events and not all possibilities at once. At the same time, collapse does not transmit information faster than light and does not violate causality, but is part of the formal description of measuring quantum systems. In other words, collapse is like a jump from uncertainty to concreteness caused by the act of observation itself. You may ask if it is precisely our attention that causes the collapse of the wave function and the folding of reality into one variant. Are there premises for the effectiveness of positive thinking? Yes, the ideas of quantum mechanics can serve as a philosophical premise for the effectiveness of positive thinking. In this context, consciousness and perception are considered as acts of choosing from many possible states of the inner world. Positive thinking, focusing on constructive and inspiring images, can be imagined as a kind of active collapse, a conscious choice of those states that support health, motivation, and psychological resilience. Although this is more of a metaphorical view than a strict scientific theory, many psychologists and coaches believe that our thinking actually influences perception and behavior, forming a positive cycle of change. Thus, quantum ideas serve as inspiration for recognizing the importance of inner attitude and conscious attention management as factors improving the quality of life. At the same time, it is important to remember that scientific understanding of quantum processes in the brain is still developing, and there is no direct evidence that positive thinking directly controls quantum collapses yet. But the concept opens interesting horizons for integrating science and conscious development practices. Philosophers have long wondered what consciousness really is. The great Erwin Schrödinger, whose works in quantum physics inspired modern scientists in his book, What is Life?, suggested that living organisms are carriers of some order derived from quantum effects going beyond classical physics. Later in the 20th century, Roger Penrose, relying on Gödel's theorem, concluded that the human brain can perform actions not reducible to classical computer calculations. This conclusion challenged the dominance of classical logic in understanding thinking, pointing to the unexplored quantum depth of our mind. The greatest minds continued to develop these ideas. Stuart Hameroff, who combines biology and physics, emphasizes the importance of microtubules in generating consciousness. Recent studies show that meditation induces enhanced gamma waves, which, according to scientists, are associated with manifestations of quantum superpositions of consciousness. This explains phenomena that traditional science for a long time could only call mystical. All this prompts us to wonder, are we living in a deeply interconnected quantum matrix, bound to our reality as tightly as matter and energy? The question remains open as to which exact quantum mechanisms govern our perception, memory, and will, and how they interact with the classical world. If this view of consciousness fills you with new meanings, be sure to share your impressions in the comments. It will help keep our attention on the path of scientific and philosophical research. Watch our videos, reflect, and don't forget to support the channel with your like, because together we can decode the code of quantum consciousness. In conclusion, the quantum matrix is not only an abstract term, but also a working concept that helps us look at the connection between the micro world of uncertainty and the macro sphere of our consciousness. This matrix is like an invisible fabric embroidered with flows of energy, information, and thought, shaping our perception, choices, and destinies. Science is just beginning to understand its language, combining physics, biology, and philosophy in an attempt to unravel the most important phenomenon, the nature of consciousness itself. Within this mystery lies a profound question. How much are we masters of our own life, and how deeply do quantum processes influence our self-awareness and will? This question opens a perspective for further research that will not only change the scientific view of the world, but also expand our understanding of ourselves. Who knows? Perhaps right now a new paradigm is forming, uniting the quantum and classical worlds into a single mosaic reality.